With just 2 legislative days left until the government shuts down, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer standing firm on health care demands in a stopgap funding bill. A reminder, Schumer drew backlash for siding with the Republicans in March to keep the government open from his own party. Now this, as the Senate has rejected both the House-passed short-term government funding bills and the Democrats' counteroffer. This puts Washington on the path to a shutdown for October 1st. I want to bring in Michigan Congressman Bill Huizenga. He's a member of House Financial Services, Congressman. So President Trump, good morning to you, is predicting a shutdown due to the funding impasse in the Senate. The last time we had a shutdown of the government, this was 2018 and 19, and you had 800,000 federal workers that were furloughed. Military members, service members don't get paychecks. A lot is at stake. Do you expect a shutdown?
Well, good morning, Cheryl. And yes, sadly, we're seeing from that clip, Chuck Schumer is right. Things have changed. He got pressure. That was not the old Chuck Schumer. Old Chuck Schumer would have taken a clean CR to keep the government open in a heartbeat, but he knows that he's got a progressive wing problem, which won't allow him to do that. And obviously, it's in the Republicans' best interests right now to keep that government open and moving, as well as we're seeing the work that Donald Trump is doing in the White House with Senate leadership in the House and the Senate as well. We think we're on the right direction and right path, but I hope it's avoidable. It should be avoidable, but we'll see. As the old saying goes, there's no standard like a double standard, and we're seeing that out of Chuck Schumer. That's for sure.
Well, both Senator Schumer and Congressman Jeffries have requested a meeting with President Trump. President Trump says he is open to that. Do you think that dialogue could lead to averting a government shutdown? And also, I want to ask you about the fact that this goes back all the way to health care, and this is ACA, and this is the premiums for the Affordable Care Act. Is there a workaround to where you can get the Senate to approve, the CR, very short CR, to be clear, and avoid this? Is there a workaround with that particular piece of this? Because this really is what Jeffries and Schumer are doubling down on. Above anything else, it is health care and ACA.
It is, but you have to be clear on that. It's the temporary expansion of, not just the original. They want to include all of that expansion that happened during COVID, and that includes to people who are here without proper documentation, illegal folks that are here without that proper documentation, and they're wanting to use those taxpayer dollars to cover everyone, and that was not the case. And look, I sat in Lansing as a state legislator for 6 years prior to the expansion of ACA. But I know, I know what is supposed to be happening, which is an inclusion of the states in this healthcare equation that we're all struggling with. And what they're fighting is that paring back those savings that need to be done within the entire system writ large. Now, they say it's just about health care, but I can tell you, I talked to my progressive friends on the other side, and it's more than that. It's just, they just simply don't like what Donald Trump and the Republicans are doing when it comes to paring back the size of government. So is it productive to talk? Always. Will those talks be productive? That might be a different answer.
Yeah, well, and certainly a government shutdown, the party that causes that shutdown takes a political risk, though. But to the point at the beginning of the interview with you, this seems something that Chuck Schumer is willing to take on because of the backlash he got from the Democrats, the progressive wing in particular, when he sided with Republicans in the month of March. Tiana Ludesher's got a quick question for you.
Yeah. I want to ask about the state of play here, and specifically what House Republicans have put on the table, because Mike Johnson has your team in recess until after the shutdown would begin. The clean CR would take us through right before Thanksgiving. Aren't these Biden-era spending levels that you've already put on the table for Democrats? And if they reject that, what happens if the House isn't back in session?
Yeah, so good question. And as Cheryl was talking about in the setup of this all, that the House was only scheduled to be in the 29th and the 30th, those 2 days before we hit Rosh Hashanah and the Jewish holiday. to ramp up that pressure, our leadership has said, hey, we're not coming back for those 2 days because, again, the logistics of getting people back and forth across the country is a challenging one. And we're wanting to see the pressure build on Chuck Schumer and other senators. Look, John Fetterman already voted for that Republican House clean CR. They couldn't get enough votes for the Democrat proposed CR coming out of the Senate. So they've got some negotiations that they have to do internally as well. And we think that pressure building is going to help them find clarity, shall we say, to move forward and say, okay, let's live to fight another day. Let's not put the government structure at risk here by having our government employees have those questions. Frankly, to help avert that, I introduced a bill that would make sure that we paid not just our troops, which was established a number of years ago, but that we're also going to make sure that we pay our Border Patrol, our ICE agents, our DHS officers during any type of shutdown as well, because we just know we don't want anyone to be lowering their guard here during this time. But at the end of the day, though, this is completely avoidable if they would literally just keep the government open, which is on terms that they had negotiated mostly prior to this government budget that we're currently living with. And let's move forward. Let's negotiate, find that time before Thanksgiving to land on another number. And then we'll move forward for the rest of the calendar year. I'm sorry, the fiscal year.
It's interesting, and you mentioned just a second ago, that's the Pay Our Homeland Defenders Act of 2026 that you've introduced. That way that those that are working to defend our country, in particular these ICE agents, to your point, Border Patrol, will continue to get paychecks. I think that's very, very important. Politico has an interesting take on all of this, Congressman, that, this kind of is reminiscent of 2013, but the roles have become incredibly, opposite when it comes to Republicans and Democrats. It was always Democrats that were pushing through these short-term CRs, pushing through short-term funding, and it was the Republicans that were threatening a shutdown. Now you've got the opposite in Washington. And, we had Congressman Zinke on, Brian Zinke, last hour, and he said, yep, short-term shutdown, here we go. There's huge political risk in all of this right now, sir.
Yeah, and one difference from previous shutdowns, and sadly I've had to live through a number of them here since I was elected in 2010. Unlike some previous and more recent shutdowns, we haven't passed any of the appropriations bills. So this is going to be government-wide. Previous quote-unquote shutdowns, we had passed good segments of the budget and had been signed into law, and so those appropriations weren't just system-wide. And I hope this is avoidable. I know it is avoidable. And if we just simply see Chuck Schumer and others live to what their standard had been not that long ago, like as you had in the clip just 6 months ago, then it would be entirely avoidable. But, again, I think it's more about politics than it is about the policy. And you've got some people fighting and throwing elbows to make sure that they're next in line for the 2028 presidential election. So there's a lot of bluster happening over on the left.
And a lot at stake, obviously, because of the midterms. As you mentioned, everyone's going to, home in their districts. What are you going to hear from constituents? And that also plays into the decision making and the statements we're getting from lawmakers. It's great to have you here, Congressman Bill Huizenga. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks, Cheryl. Good to be with you.
All right.